us. Our Bible reading for this morning that we're going to reflect on through our message to come is Steve here this morning. Steve Pick. Hello, sir. Really appreciate your message last week. And what was it you said? How many times money is mentioned in the Bible or by Jesus? Do you remember what it was? Because unfortunately I forgot. 24%. It was a lot, and you picked out a few, and I thought, oh yeah, it kind of is in a way. Our Bible reading this morning, though, is very much directly on Jesus talking about money and a challenge that he puts to all of us. Reading from Luke 12, verse 13. Just give you a moment to prepare for our reading. Jesus speaking, and it's the parable of the rich fool from verse 13 to 21. Then someone called from the crowd, "Teacher, please tell my brother to divide our father's estate with me." Jesus replied, "Friend, who made me a judge over you to decide such things as that?" And then he said, "Beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own." And he told them a story. A rich man had a fertile farm that produced fine crops. He said to himself, "What should I do? I don't have room for all of my crops." And then he said, "I know, I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. Then I'll have enough room to store all my wheat and my other goods. And I'll sit back and I'll say to myself, 'My friend, you have enough stored away for years to come. Now take it easy, eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, you will die this very night. Then who will get everything that you have worked for?' Yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, but not have a rich relationship with God."
Well, I reckon that teaching goes down as one of Jesus' 10 most challenging and confronting statements, because it really gets to the heart of oftentimes money for us is a sense of security. It's a sense we place our hope in it. For example, a man finally makes it. After years of grinding and saving and investing, he is able to retire at 45. How good does that sound? Oftentimes when jobs are hard or my work is hard, I think, oh, I'm looking forward to retirement. I'm looking forward to not having to go to work, just to, go fishing, just to watch YouTube, play some computer games, have coffee. It's going to be amazing. And this man, he got there. And he posts a selfie on Instagram that says, "I finally got there, living the dream, time to eat, drink, and be merry." Now, this is a common narrative that we hear all the time. And in subtle ways, I saw an ad recently. I'd like to play this ad to you. It's a little clip off the Gruen transfer, and the ad will come in a minute. See if this ad is familiar to you.
There are currently 12 different superannuation funds running ads on Aussie Telly, but none are quite like this one.
Hey, Sue!
Bev, you're sitting on a monster.
Literally and figuratively. It's my superannuation from Australian Retirement Trust.
Australian Retirement Trust. Right.
Big, isn't it? Comes with an app.
I gotta get me one of those.
One day, I'll unleash it on the world. Maybe even Barbados. Barbados, baby!
Awaken your super with Australian Retirement Trust.
Okay, so the challenging thing is that Jesus' story that he just told, his parable, pretty much presents in that clip there, that woman is like the hero. She's the person who's got monster super. And we want to be like her, to be able to retire early, to eat, drink, and be merry. It's all going to be good. So the ad is promoting us that we would be like her. But the challenge is that Jesus' story that he just tells, and what we've read from Ponso there, presents a very different picture, a very different narrative, and really challenges us around what's our relationship with money, what's our relationship with savings. And Jesus loves to stir the pot, and he loves to confront his listeners. And that's exactly what he's doing. In fact, Jesus calls that man in his parable a fool. Let's unpack that and understand why would he do that. You see, for many people, that's their life dream. Make a ton of money, retire early, and live it up. And that was the picture that this man in the story that Andrew Ponso read was all about. But Jesus gets to the heart of the matter. You see, there's two people and they're arguing. And they say to Jesus, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me. Now that seems like a fair request, right? Maybe he's got a painful brother. He's not sharing. He's being difficult. And so the other brother's trying to get Jesus to solve their problem for them. But rather than actually enter into the conflict, Jesus goes a totally different way. And he shares this story that gets to the heart of the matter. Because maybe he didn't want to be involved in their personal tiff. Or maybe he knew what the real issue was, which was actually greed. Maybe it was greed of the first brother who wasn't sharing. Maybe it was greed of the second brother who wanted and demanded the inheritance. Either way, Jesus jumps over the direct conflict and tells a story that challenges all our hearts. So let me unpack this parable for you. He said, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. Now, this man in the story, there are a number of buckets that he's investing in. The first bucket is earn. We see this in the parable. He says, the ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. Interestingly, the man did not recognize this harvest had come from God, did not have any reference for God at all, but simply loved to earn. He was a rich man, and he did very good at gathering money and putting all that money and those harvests into his barns. He was very good at earning. He was earning as much as he could. Now, he also was very good at saving. He thought to himself, what should I do? I have no place to store up my crops. Then he said, this is what I will do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store the surplus grain. So this man was very good. Where is my right one gone to? This one here. Here we go. At saving. Not only was he rich, but he also was very good at making bigger barns and saving as much as he could. It's good. But also he was very good at spending. He said this to himself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take it easy, eat, drink, and be merry. That's exactly what he did. You see, he thought about my crops, my barns, my grain, my goods. He talks to himself, he plans for himself, he lives for himself. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded of you. Then who will get what you've prepared for yourself? This is how it will be, whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not, and this is the key thing, rich towards God. Say it with me. Rich towards God. And so he misses the point. He misses the point completely. This idea is a missing ingredient in this man's financial plan. He's very good at earning. He's very good at saving. He's very good at spending. But there's some missing ingredients within his framework for understanding money. What does it mean to be rich towards God? It means living with eternity in mind. It's seeing our resources as tools to enhance and further God's kingdom, not just personal comfort and gain. It's living with gratitude, generosity, and as God as the center. It's having all our finances underneath the God umbrella. And when we do this, there's new ingredients that are introduced. When we really submit ourselves to God and his kingdom, there is a fourth ingredient, which is this, is give. Give as much as you can. And this is what he was missing. The man was missing the submission to God, and he was missing an others-focused approach of sharing his money and giving. He didn't ask, how can I use my money to pay my workers more wages? Or how can I use it to enhance the community? Or what can I do to give back? How can I bless others? He was all focused on himself. To give as much as we can. And when we have this balance, we have it earn as much as you can, save as much as you can, give as much as you can, and the last one is spend as you need. And this is the main point. This is what Jesus is trying to say. This man had it out of balance. He missed the point of what life was about. And therefore, he was a fool. He wasn't a fool to save money. That's okay. To put money in advance for the future, that's okay. But he had his hope in the wrong thing. And because he was a very narrow-minded in his perspective on money, he had no room for giving, he missed the whole point of money. He worshipped it and allowed it to control him. Martin Luther said that every disciple of Jesus must go through three conversions. Good old Luther. He said a conversion of the heart, a conversion of the mind, and a conversion of the purse. And then one Christian said, well, 2 out of 3 is not bad. Earn, save, give, and spend. The early church had a radical view of generosity and what Pope Francis calls the preferential option for the poor. As we've already heard, there's around 500 verses in the Bible on faith, another 500 on prayer, but over 2,000 on God's heart for the poor. This is a big issue for God, that he cares for the poor, for those that we would help those who have less than us. And the early church got this. In Acts 2 is a story of the early church, and we read this passage. The believers came together and had everything in common, and they sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. And so this parable that Jesus wrote, it comes from Luke, and also Luke wrote the start of Acts as well. And so we get Luke saying, give to the poor, and in the early church, giving to anyone who had need. There's sort of a connection there between those who are, in mind, poor and those who have need. Timothy Keller called this financial promiscuity. He said the early church was strikingly different from the culture around it. The pagan society was stingy with its money, but promiscuous. And that means like giving it to everybody. It's like sharing with everybody. Promiscuous with its body. The pagans gave nobody their money and practically everybody their body. And the Christians came along and practically gave nobody their body and gave everybody their money. It was the other way around. There was this tremendous focus on sharing and giving to the poor. And Jesus himself modeled this. Matthew 14:14, Jesus went forth and saw a great multitude and was moved with, and say it with me, compassion for them, and he healed their sick. Brené Brown describes compassion as the daily practice of recognizing and accepting our shared humanity, and that we treat ourselves and others with loving kindness. We feel one another's pain, and we take action in the face of suffering. Now, I find myself that pity is easy. Compassion is more difficult. It's easy to feel pity for someone who has less than you or is different or is in a place of need. But compassion is a much more difficult process because it involves entering into feeling the other person's pain, feeling their need, feeling what's actually going on, then stepping down and coming alongside them. Pity looks down, compassion comes alongside. And Jesus was moved with compassion. And he calls us to do the same as we see others suffering, as we see others need, that we would come along with compassion and to give generously and to help them, whether that's in time, whether that's in money, whether that's through giving a word of encouragement to them, that we would be people who have our lives changed by generosity and we generously share with others with compassion. So how do we move away from pity and towards growing ourselves in compassion? Well, I've been thinking about this a little bit and doing a bit of reading around how do we grow in compassionate generosity, because that's something that I want more of. But a bit like my triathlon training, it's a bit painful as well, because it involves dying to self and prioritizing other people. One of the key things to grow in compassionate generosity is boundaries. That might be a bit of a surprise to you, but I think boundaries are really important. Let me tell you a story. Imagine I was down the street at Mayfield and a guy comes up to me who's looking a bit rough. He's been sleeping on the street. I can see that life's a bit hard for him. And he comes and says, mate, can you give me some money to help me with my heroin addiction? Now, what would you do? Would you give him money or not? No, why not? Because you're probably enabling his addiction. It's not a healthy thing. It's outside your values. It's outside your boundaries. You want to help, but you can't help in that way. Does that make sense? So boundaries are important there. But he then says, well, how about you just give me some money? Would you give him the money? Probably not, because you know that he might use that for the wrong thing. But you probably can buy him some food. You probably can give him a word of encouragement. You probably can share a scripture with him. So there's things you can and you can't do based on what is and what isn't okay. You wouldn't share your bank account details with him. So boundaries are important because they help us know how to help somebody else. Also, assumptions. It's easy to look at somebody who's a bit destitute and assume, well, that person's made some bad choices in life. It's his fault. I'm not going to help him. He's just going to waste my money. As we make compassionate assumptions about people, if we think the best of people, it frees us to be able to be generous. You know, I'm never going to know if someone is doing the best they can, but when I think that they are, it frees me to be generous and to be kind to them, thinking the best of them. And lastly, a willingness to act. You know, generosity is hard. It's easy to do nothing. It's easy just to let it be. But when we have a courage to act, courage to challenge the status quo, then we're able to be generous. So friends, this story of Jesus, it is challenging. It challenges us to think about where we're putting our hope and our trust. It challenges us not to build bigger barns, but to be generous to the poor, to be generous to those who are in need. And this is a growth area for all of us, because every day of our lives, we see needs. There are needs before us, but the question is, are we looking? Are we listening? Are we taking risks to respond, to step into that? Are we listening to what God has to say to us? Because you know what? One act of generosity can change a life. Can change a life forever. And so, friends, are we ready to take the risk? Are we ready to be that church, to be those people, to continue the mission of Jesus, that of transforming lives through generosity like the early church? I pray that we would. Where is God growing you in generosity? Let us not build bigger barns, but let us be generous to the poor. I'm going to invite up the music team. And as I do that, I'm just going to give us just a moment to think and just to process generosity. What's God saying to you in this moment?